Welcome to 10 Minutes With. It's a podcast for people who want to listen to podcasts but don't have all day. We've got a quick chat with someone you might be interested in learning more about in about 10 minutes. Peter Burton's music has found its way into feet tapping along to Where Would I Be? Not just because the song is catchy, but because hearts of Jesus lovers love to complete the question of where they'd be without Jesus. Thank God, I'll never know. This is Tim Powers from Rise Up weekday mornings on Family Life, and my talk with Peter encouraged me as he took me down the path of where he's been with Jesus on a mental health journey. You're in unique ranking with Christian music of great rhetorical questions and song. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
Is he worthy?
Yeah.
Who am I? Whom shall I fear? And where would I be? So I love it.
I never thought about that. That's amazing. There's so much packed within it, right? It's a question and an answer and a statement all in one.
It is.
So.
Every one of us has a story, though, where there's a person. Where would I be without the one who introduced me to Jesus? What's that story for you?
I met Jesus when I was really young. I grew up in an amazing Christian household with very loving parents, very God-honoring parents. I was actually led to Jesus. One of my core memories is my siblings led me to Jesus, which was kind of cool, I'm one of four kids and I'm the baby. And so everyone's older than me. I remember being at my bedside and all my siblings leading me to Jesus. Oh. Now that's all fun and beautiful and sweet and isn't that sweet? But obviously as my life went on, my faith really had to become something that was my own. So even though growing up in a Christian household, I still I went through massive years of being a prodigal and stuff through high school and all of that. But ultimately, if I was to say who really tethered my heart to my relationship with Jesus, it's kind of the local church, believe it or not. I'm a creative musician. I grew up loving music. Once I got into my teenage years and high school years and started living like a prodigal, music is what kept me coming back to church because it was the only place I could play live on a weekend for.
Okay.
I was like, the church is going to let me play live on stage. I'm going to get up and play. Maybe not for the right reasons. I wanted to hit the drums. I wanted to play electric guitar. And I was involved in worship through that whole process, going and living one way maybe during the week and then showing up to be a part of Sunday mornings. And it was almost like that's how God kept me close to Jesus and taught me more about him through the music I had to learn every Sunday, through the lyrics, through the songs. And so worship music and Christian music and, driving in the car with my mom and her playing Christian radio, I was a Christian and a believer and had accepted Jesus, but it was like God used that avenue to keep me coming back to him. I would actually say that Christian music and the local church played a massive part in me being connected to Jesus still today and walking with him. It's not one person for me. I think it's multiple. God knew I was going to need an army to keep this boy grounded.
What part of your story do you think people could hear themselves and the hope they need most in?
Yeah. So massive part of my personal story and testimony, and this is where the song Where Would I Be literally stems from, is I've grown up my entire life struggling with mental health in a pretty extreme way. From a really young age, I was diagnosed with OCD and anxiety, and I dealt a lot of my life with extreme panic and anxiety that was just pretty overwhelming. My parents were amazing. They caught this when I was really, really young. I was able to really work through it and get a lot of help in life. But it's always still been a big part of my struggle when the real stresses of life started to, come down, being a husband and a father and finances and jobs and career and future. And then all the things that come with being in the world we live in today. I got to a point where I had this massive relapse and I had a huge mental breakdown. I was living controlled by fear. I was barely able to get out of bed some days. I was in massive amounts of anxiety that was physically taking over my body and panic attacks and different things. And I've just been someone who battles that my whole life. And I got to a point where I was so desperate I had to get help, and by the grace of God, like I got into therapy. I even had to be on medication and different things. And I had to go through all these different things. But ultimately, through that season, I began to question my faith. Okay, I believe in Jesus. And then when I got to this later area in my life, and everything came crashing down, and I felt like I couldn't even control my mind, I started to go, well, I'm leading worship. I'm serving God every weekend. I'm trying to proclaim his name, and he's not taking this thing away from me. So I began to really wrestle with that. I got to a point where I was just like, why would a God who loves me, who I'm serving, who's a healer, allow me to experience, getting up and leading worship and then getting in my car and crying because I can barely breathe from anxiety. I was on this walk with my mom one day, and I was on the phone with her, and it was at my lowest low. I'd already been in therapy. I was on medication. I was all these things, and I was still struggling with fear, just overwhelming my life. And I'll never forget, I said to her, Mom, I really want to have faith because I feel like the only hope I have to survive is that there's a higher power who can heal my mind, because I'm already doing everything I can possibly do. So like, I want to choose to have faith, but I don't feel it at all. And she goes, well, that's good news then for you. And I'm like, what are you talking about, Mom? She goes, because faith's not a feeling, it's a choice. You can choose it. I don't have some crazy story of like, and then boom, God healed me and the anxiety went away. And it's been this like, okay, wait a second. I can choose to believe God is who he says he is, and that his word is true and holds all authority, even when I don't feel it. And it was me learning that began to slowly build and compound on itself day after day. My mind began to heal itself. I began to see breakthrough in my life. And then I started to go, okay, God is who he says he is, because he didn't promise this life to be easy. And in fact, we all have different disease and sickness and illness and all these things because we live in a fallen world. But he did promise that he would be with us. And if we choose him daily, we're going to see him show up daily for us. And then here's the other thing I would say is that was great. And I started to see, okay, I'm going to make it because God's with me. But then I started to go, well, why aren't you healing me if I have all this? If I can choose to have faith, why aren't you healing me so you can get glory from my story? And I'll never forget, I read it somewhere. I don't know where I read it, but it was that God will either get glory from your healing or your sustaining.
Oh.
And so for me, it was God going, Peter, I'm going to get glory because I sustain you every single day, because every day you wake up, you're going to need me to get from when you wake up to when you go to bed. But I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to get glory day after day after day after day. It's not going to be this one healing moment. That was a breakthrough for me to go, okay, like every day I can wake up and be sustained. I'm happy to say here on this podcast and anyone listening to this that I am healthier mentally than I've ever been in my life.
Praise God.
But I still struggle with anxiety daily. But I've got tools and people and accountability and things that God's built into my life. But I'm still not healed, but I am sustained. And that's my story as an artist, to get up on stage and go, hey, do you struggle with any type of mental health? And there's a big spectrum of mental health, right?
Oh, yeah.
From very extreme things to other things. And I just want to be an advocate to say, like, hey, if you're frustrated with God because you're not healed, maybe you need to take a different approach to it. My story is getting up and going like, hey, where would I be? Standing where I stand now. I almost can't believe it, how good he's been to me. Every wrong turn, he turned around. And I just can't imagine if it didn't happen, how it happened.
Yeah.
It's the story of, if I didn't have Jesus in my life, I would not be here right now, because I believe mental illness may have taken me down. But I do have him. And that's when Satan tries to go, what about all these things you used to do, Peter, and all this fear you used to live in? It's my one liner to the enemy where I get to go, where would I be if I didn't have Jesus? Well, thank God I'll never know, because I do got him, and I'm never going to lose him. If you're struggling with that, and I'm speaking this right now to anyone hearing this, that if you're struggling with anything mentally, I get more than anyone how crippling that can be and how scary it can be. But I promise you will make it if you hand your life to Jesus. I promise you will. life still isn't like easy.
Right.
There's all these other new challenges, but I know that if he's brought me from there to where I am now, whatever I face going forward, he's going to be with me in it. And I ultimately know that this isn't my home, and someday there'll be freedom on the other side of that. But I hope my story can be an encouragement for someone.
Oh,
If you feel desperate and hopeless, you never know what's on the other side of your obedience. Obedience is our job. Outcome is God's. Trust him with that.
oh, come on. That's so good. Yeah, totally. Kind of like the 2 Corinthians thorn in the flesh. His strength is made perfect in our weakness.
Yeah.
It's just exactly that. It's like he's all over that.
And I had that thought too. I was like, maybe this is my thorn. And was wild as the other day, I had the thought like, man, even if God, and I don't know the answer to this. I don't know if God caused my mental illness. I don't know if he allowed it.
Right.
I don't know. But I had to ask myself the question, what if he did? If it was so he could keep me close to him, it was 1,000% worth it. Wow. Because if I didn't, I'm honest to God, I don't know if I didn't have my mental struggles, if I would be following Jesus today. If I had, those weren't in my life and I didn't need something to tether me to, if he used it to keep me near him, so be it.
Peter Burton joins Ann Wilson for the Stars Tour, Friday, May 1st in Erie, PA, Thursday, May 7th in Syracuse, New York. He's also playing at Victory in the Valley, a free concert in New Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Saturday, June 13th. More info at familylife.org/events. If you've enjoyed this episode of 10 Minutes With, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. You might also consider giving to Family Life, the listener-funded ministry that makes this and other podcasts possible. Go to familylife.org and find out more about what we do. Did you know Family Life offers a variety of podcasts? Get up to date with Family Life news or enjoy some family time with Family Life Kids. There's If That Makes Sense, a Family Life original podcast talking about what life is really like as a young adult Christian, and Therese Talk, a podcast with help for women to better serve their families and community. They are all free and on demand at familylife.org/podcast.